Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and when things are good and getting great, my colleague Brian E. Roach shows up, actually buzzing me on my phone, asking if we could have recorded right after the game, which was pretty much impossible as I was en route back to Pittsburgh. So we've got some Monday morning quarterbacking to do for you.
You were en route back from Pittsburgh.
Did I say two?
Yes.
Well, either way.
You were coming. You were in the car.
It doesn't matter. I got to make the trip one way or the other. So, what's going on, Brian?
Hey, I'm nothing.
I mean, you assume I was in a car. You ever,
nothing, nothing's happening, right? There's no. I mean, we're talking. It's the day after a game, but nothing really going on.
Oh, nothing, not at all. Even Stan Savran couldn't be a Debbie Downer after that game yesterday, and he had been pretty rough in most of the post games, and it was one of the more enjoyable because I thought I got more of a genuine feedback on what was going on, and I agreed with some of it. And actually, there was a few things that happened that I was validated on too. It's like, man, I wish I could have said that first, so I don't have to say, hey, Stan or Charlie or Adam Crowley or one of these other guys I heard say it first. But we've got things and stuff to talk about, Brian, and actually on the short week, a little bit of a kind of a programming note here. We will not have a pregame for the Thursday night game against the Vikings. So this will be part of your pregame. Just to throw out Adam Thielen, pretty much, I won't say top wide receiver because they still have Justin Jefferson, who had a monster game yesterday against the Lions, but they lost. Lions get their first victory, and that's got to look even more promising to Steelers Nation now, given the 20-19 final here where the Steelers improved to 6-5-1. Baltimore Ravens drop a game down to 8-4. Telling people there was a chance with this one. Now you're going to feel that there's a chance with the next one. A short week. Got to go to Minnesota. Looking, where was the final score? 29-27. Thielen's going to be out. That's one of Kirk Cousins' big targets. You've got the Steelers and Vikings have a lot of parallels, I think. I think they're both talented teams that sometimes don't do as well as they should. And that's about as far as I think I'm going to leave that. As we dive into the Ravens and Steelers, maybe we'll insert a little bit of what we could talk about. But they're also without their star running back, Dalvin Cook, and they had a makeshift offensive line yesterday, too. They had three guys playing in spots where they hadn't played or hadn't played at all. They were moving pieces around. So on a short week, they got to try and figure out how to fix it when they lost to the only team that hadn't had a victory in the NFL, and that's going to be just as difficult as the Steelers licking their wounds a little bit. But I'm going to talk a little bit about Mike Tomlin's strategy in this game and how that actually parlays over into Thursday. So, I guess, what's the elephant? I could go through all of these plays. There's a few elephants in the room. Let's give some game balls first, my friend.
Well, I want to, if you don't mind, I would like to validate some people first.
Okay.
I'm going to validate people who were Debbie Downers coming into this game. That's what I'm going to do. You won't agree with this 100%, but I do. After the catastrophe in Cincinnati, after that debacle, after the last 3 weeks, there was absolutely very limited reasons to have positivity going into this game. So if you were one of those Debbie Downers, you should absolutely own your feelings. They're fine. The team had not given you much to be positive about.
No, that's correct.
That being said, because I was busy and I could not join you on the pregame on this, I would have told you that doesn't mean crap when you're dealing with the Ravens for multiple reasons. The two teams are too alike. They're built to play each other, and the Ravens are not as good, which we've been saying this all year long. Oh. They're not as good as the record that they have.
It's finally coming to light. Finally, I tweeted something out. Tina was going back and forth, and Tina's sharing me like stats on Twitter as I was en route to Pittsburgh yesterday. And I'm like, you get all this crap. that the media likes to drop on the weekend. Number one being the Ben Roethlisberger has spoken to certain people. My name is Adam Schefter, and I have heard this from a friend who had a cousin who stood next to a water cooler, who has another friend who is related, second cousin to Ben Roethlisberger, that heard this from somebody that knew him. And it's just like, we hadn't actually heard Ben. There's a few layers to this. It's like, number one, did any of us really think, I mean, we're on at least a coin flip assumption that this was always going to be Ben Roethlisberger's last year.
Absolutely.
There was definitely a strong possibility of that. It was never a surefire thing that he was going to play beyond 2021. I don't think any of us had those type of aspirations. We said there is a possibility. Maybe we'll see how he feels this year, and maybe he plays beyond. We'll see what the Steelers end up doing as a business, as an organization, in retaining or keeping him. So to drop this news on a Saturday, it's the news dump where the team is preparing for the next game. They don't have any press conferences. They're not going to address this on social media. None of this stuff's going to come to light until you have a post-game press conference. So it's something that now circulates in those team meetings on Saturday night at the hotel. It circulates in the locker room and it pisses people off. There's no other way of saying it. It's negativity that isn't needed. And they dump it on that day because nobody can refute it, and then you look like the smartest man in the room because you do it on a Saturday or a Sunday, as Adam Schefter does, as Ian Rappaport does, as Tom Pelissero. All these guys that are the NFL insiders, they've made this an art. One of the other ones, I think it was Pelissero that put out, that was like, Devin Bush won't be receiving a fifth-year option. Look, guys, we got 6 games left in this season, and they don't have to make that fifth-year option decision until, like, March. So why the hell are you releasing this information other than to, like, rain on the Steelers parade, try and just bring them down anymore? Try and bring down this individual player, his teammates thinking, like, alongside of him. What does that mean for me? Even if I'm not Devin Bush, what does that mean for me if I'm Robert Spillane? Does that mean I get a longer-term contract? Like, all these different things that just, it's The Onion. It's layers, right? And it actually is The Onion, like the parody website that puts out the satire, news and articles and stuff like that. So nobody could say anything about it up until this point, and that just really gets under my skin. We've had it happen how many times over the years? Ben has requested a trade to the Rams when it was him and Todd Haley not getting along and stuff like that. I was like, where is the negative reporting for the Ravens? Do we have anything that we could say about Lamar Jackson throwing 4 interceptions the day before? That's what Tina was getting at. But I was like, no, it should be something like John Harbaugh has a hangnail or something, and it's it got infected and it's spreading around the locker room or something. Like, just something dumb like that has nothing to do with, like, talk about Lamar Jackson's contract. Like, hey, the Ravens are, after 4 interceptions, the Ravens are now thinking maybe he's not the guy. Maybe they aren't going to give him a big contract or an extension or something. Do something like that impacts that team too. It drives me nuts, Brian. I don't know how you feel about it, but I can't stand when this happens on, like, a Saturday or Sunday when there's a Sunday game day.
Do you want to really know how I feel about it?
I want to know how you felt about Mark Madden being on the money with that tweet.
I'll tell you, that bothers me more than anything else. Having to agree with that man bothers me more than anything else you could say. But I can be the bigger man. Well, maybe not. I may not. I'm not sure I can be the bigger man than Mark Madden. But I can be the gracious person who said, hey, even a blind dog finds a bone every now and then. He happens to be correct in that statement that he made. But as far as all this other stuff, guess what? The number of F's I give is 0. I just don't care.
I'm trying to find this Mark Madden tweet real quick because it was actually pretty much a gem, and it was about it was like Ben Roethlisberger Appreciation Day. And it isn't often that I would ever tweet Mark Madden, but it was. I got to find this, Brian. It's driving me nuts. And of course, I won't find it when I want it right now. Isn't that the way it always works? Mark Madden. So, anyways, when this type of news drops, it just peeves me. And you've got all the other things that were going on. You got the Andrew Filipponis and all the like the 93.7 The Fan people that were just all over the Steelers. What can they do and everything else? what needs fixed? What's their biggest problem? And I'm not going to find this tweet, and that's kind of a shame because it was actually something pretty good. For as much as we rag on Mark Madden and some of the things that he said, negative and otherwise, it was basically, hey, everyone needs to get behind Ben Roethlisberger and appreciate this guy. Oh, he actually said another one you're going to like, too. Ben won the game today. By the way, he killed it in the fourth quarter. Yes, he did. He had a perfect quarterback rating in the fourth quarter, which was just more of the stuff where we say, maybe the old gunslinger does still have it. So, anyways,
well, let me say one more thing about your pet peeve here with this.
Yeah.
The reason that I give 0 Fs about this is there is that kind of talk all the time, right? There's all kinds of nonsense. Mm-hmm. It is their job to ignore that crap. And realistically, if he hasn't told people within the organization, the leadership within the teams, other players, and when this question was binged at everybody, did Tomlin say absolutely no? He did not. Did Cam Hayward say absolutely no? He has not said any such thing. He did not. Did Ben say no, I never talked about it? He did not. Of course he's talked about it.
He's talked about it for 5 years.
Yeah, I know. He talks about it even before it was going to be something to talk about.
So it's actually not even really news. It's just it's more or less the pedestal they put it on.
I know, but my point is
Sunday morning,
they need to be over. They need to be able to compartmentalize that and put it aside.
Oh yeah, but
and
still
not use it as a distraction.
Still, it gets to you, and I don't think they did. I think they used it as motivation. And
possibly.
That's all they wanted to talk about Sunday morning, every TV and radio program.
I will tell you, if they needed this is absolutely a Chuck Noll quote, sort of bastardized. If they needed motivation to play the Ravens of any kind, then they should be fired anyway.
Well, that's true. I found the tweet.
Right.
if this is Big Ben's last season, he deserves monster support from the fan base for the rest of it. Starting tomorrow at Heinz Field, he's one of the 3 most important people in franchise history. Without Ben, we're still reminiscing about the 70s.
Absolutely correct.
Spot on. You won't fight him on that one. So, other game balls besides Ben, Deontay Johnson, absolute monster performances game. He did miss the one right in the breadbasket, man, and that was right in front of where I was sitting, and you're just like, oh, what a killer. And, that could be the game right there. And, fortunately it wasn't. 11 targets, 8 receptions for 105 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just a massive game from that man. And I don't know.
Yes, a mini gam.
Mini gam. Well,
not as many as Mike Hilton was, but, Mike Hilton was the ultimate mini gam.
Oh, yeah, mini. Well, I'll tell you, I'll give Kello Witherspoon one, too. I thought he had a fine performance. Definitely. James Pierre did not – I don't think he sniffed the field on defense, and I'm going to verify that.
Well, there's a reason for that.
Absolutely. Last week, Justin Lane was getting some snaps. I didn't think we'd ever see him again, but Witherspoon played about 92% of the game on defense. He came he may have come off the field just a couple of times, and that was more – they had some very interesting ways to defend the Ravens and their offense, of which, not just the hat rack here on my head, the old thinking cap pointed out that some of it was a situational football and the 5 linebackers deal that we saw a lot of, and actually getting Montravius Adams out there. Montravius Adams, who comes from New Orleans practice squad right to starting. He was an official starter in this game, too, because he was on the field for the first play on the defense. And Adams played about half the game, 46%, 34 snaps. Even got his big mitts on one of the passes. I'm not going to say the defensive performance was perfect, but I'm going to say they performed where and when they needed to. And this was a Ravens team going into this where I was saying they're struggling to score 20 points as of late. They struggled with teams such as the Bears. They lost to the Dolphins. They've won 4 of their 8 games by 3 points or less. They're 4-1 in those games now on count of the loss yesterday, the aggressive play calling of John Harbaugh, which I just knew he was going to do that. And I loved Mike Tomlin's snarky replies to everyone about that. He said there was something like, oh, I wish I could – I might be able to dig it up. but he said something. He paraphrased something about analytics football or something, and really kind of threw those those folks under the bus with that. So I mean, maybe let's just get into the game. There might be somebody. There might be somebody I'm missing here. Maybe.
You think? You think?
Might be the new NFL sacks leader.
Yeah, Mr. Only 4 people or whatever in the history of the NFL have had 13 sacks in 4 straight seasons.
I thought it was only 2. I thought it was just him and Reggie White.
Maybe it is. I said I'm making up the number. I don't remember. Whatever the correct number is. But yeah, as much as Ben willed the offense into that victory, TJ Watt willed the defense into that victory as well. When you thought, and this goes back to there's reasons that people should have been down about this game. If TJ Watt does not play in this game,
I said that. What was that, Friday? I said that Friday. I'm like, TJ Watt has to be on the field. And here's a guy who's just on the COVID list. And Cam Hayward also was sick all week and hadn't been. Neither of them have been practicing, and they come out just house of fire. TJ Watt, 3.5 sacks, 6 hits on the quarterback, 3 tackles for loss. The forced fumble, which should have iced the game right there, and it squeaks out of bounds, drives me absolutely crazy.
It drives nuts, yeah. I love Tomlin's response to the question. Well, TJ was so good after never practicing. Does he never have to practice again? And Tomlin says, no. And yes, he will practice, and no, there won't be music.
Well, our boy Zach Adonia said something about that after Claypool had a huge play, and he said play more music or something like that. I probably butchered that, but so did it surprise Mike Tomlin when they went for 2? He said no, it did not. They aggressively play analytics. From that standpoint, they're predictable. Ooh, yes. Yikes! I'm going to tell you one thing though, and I think they would have taken the timeout anyways. But they were struggling with what the field, as far as their defensive look, for that final play. And Cam Hayward was actually already out to the sideline, and then he's walking towards, and you can tell he's gassed. It's been a long day. And they're going like this. They get the 2 fingers up. They're like, no. And he's like taking his helmet off, and he's like, well, helmet's half off, back on, turning back over to the field to get out there, and guys are trying to shuffle, and they just timeout, get it right. And then they showed a zero blitz, which totally, that is a film thing. Now, they asked Mike Tomlin, I might have the quote here too. Let's see. I may pull this up. I just closed it, Brian. That never helps anybody. Somebody asked Mike Tomlin about the zero blitz. The tactics of your defensive call on the 2-point conversion looked like it was pretty much zero blitz. Is that something that you coach up all the time on? Yes, we start with the premise in 2-point football, and there's no secret, so I don't care about sharing it. People are not going to run it down there. We start with that premise. Yeah. I'm going to tell you where he saw this. He may coach this up at other times. They saw film on the Miami Dolphins and how they attacked the Ravens a month ago. And the Miami Dolphins threw that zero blitz at them like damn near every down. And Lamar Jackson didn't know what to do with it. And it was very similar here. And their offensive line, which also isn't fantastic, Villanueva with a few penalties there. And we're going to get to the referees, too, because they are not exempt. They are not exempt from my ire today, regardless of all the other nice things and positive things we have to talk about. The Steelers... Well, let's just jump into that. But TJ Watt, 16 sacks on the season right now. There's 5 games left.
Missing 2.5 games.
And missing 2.5 games.
Yeah.
And there was something brought up by Stan Savran. And he posed the question with 5 games left, can he break the single-season sack record set by Michael Strahan? The number by Strahan is 22.5.
Can he?
Yes.
Well, let's see. What did he get? 3.5 yesterday?
Yes.
Yes, he can.
And they were posing whether he can almost do it like in the next game or two.
Well, I don't know about the next game. He's not getting 6 sacks in Minnesota. Not that he's not capable of it. He certainly is. He could have that kind of game. We'll see who he gets pushed up against in Minnesota. But between Minnesota and the Titans after that, the Titans are not. I don't know that the Titans are going to throw as much against us. We'll deal with that when we get to it.
Yeah.
So that he has those opportunities. I mean, that's part of it, right? They got to be in a situation where the run is not really their option. He's got to have opportunities for those sacks. I think he will get them in Minnesota. Absolutely. Wouldn't surprise me if we get a 2 or 3 sack game out of him. And if he's at 19 with 4 games left, sure. I mean,
yeah.
He's proved he can rip off a 3-sack game anytime he wants. It really kind of feels that way. He could have had 2 more yesterday if he wasn't being strangled around the throat by the guard. But whatever. Whatever. Okay, we all know that's not going to get called.
Yeah. You're in James Harrison territory there.
Yeah. Speaking of which, now tied with Mr. Debo as the all-time single-season sack leader for the Steelers. So one more, and it's all his. It's big things. Look, I absolutely believe T.J. Watt over the last 2 seasons been like, what else do you want me to do before you give me the damn award for Defensive Player of the Year? You butt wipes.
I was just about to ask you how Stan Sabrin, and not to keep quoting Stan, but I had the ride home, and I was listening to them a little longer than usual. He posed the question. He posed basically that question: do you think he's just the Defensive Player of the Year, or are they going to try to give it to somebody in Dallas? And I mean, there's maybe 2 candidates, and we loved Micah Parsons coming out of college, but
he's had a a season too.
He's been a beast, but come on, this guy's
let
been
him
2.5
defensive
seasons.
Rookie of the Year. Yeah, let him be the Defensive Rookie of the Year. That's fine.
How could you deny this now at this juncture? If he continues
if he
on
sets
this
the
role?
single season sack record, you can't take it away from him.
No.
You simply can't.
No,
The ridiculous number of quarterback pressures he has, the number of forced fumbles. You just keep listing it. Look, there becomes a point in time where if he doesn't win it, you just have to admit that the voters, whoever they are, I don't even know who the hell votes for these awards, but whoever those voters are, have their heads up their posteriors and just hate the Steelers.
Absolutely. All right, my friend. Well, let's see. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger didn't have to throw a whole lot. We had the magic number. Najee ran the ball 21 times. It was only 71 yards, but they started. This fourth quarter was just unbelievable. Ben was 21-31, 236, 2 touchdowns. We're going to dive quickly into the first half because there wasn't a whole lot going on. In fact,
was there not.
In the fourth quarter, when the Heinz red zone, the bottles tilted and came down, I was like, man, I don't think I've seen that all year. And the crowd was going nuts. There were, I think, a lot of first-time people. I think people going to the game. I think people were selling their tickets, and they were already downtrodden on this team. And so I found myself, for maybe the first time ever, doing one of these, like you saw the players doing it, like people were getting a little too excited while the Steelers were holding the football. So if you listen to this show, folks, and you go to an NFL game at any time, don't stand for the entire game. It's not a concert. Take a seat sometimes so the people behind you can see, especially if you're in like row 3, 5. You're close enough to the field, unless somebody's standing in front of you. It doesn't mean you don't jump up with some excitement, but you got a little bit of that. Sit down. Don't try and interrupt people in between plays. And last but not least, don't go making a ton of noise when the Steelers have the ball in their hands. That's what you do when the other team has the ball in their hands.
Yes, correct.
You make a ton of racket. And the fans knew what to do in that fourth quarter. It was raucous. It was only about 59,000 so it wasn't capacity yesterday. But they made so much noise. You got to make noise, not just when they come to the line of scrimmage, but people knew to make noise while they were in the huddle. Make it hard for them to communicate what they need to do. That's your job with home field advantage. You are part of the home field advantage. Scream your head off at those opportune times, especially, and they did. I'll give a thumbs up to them there.
Can we also dispel the myth that Renegade doesn't work anymore?
Oh my God! Yeah, well, that myth is definitely dead for sure. We put that one away, 6 feet under, tip the dirt over on it. We know where that came from. I'm not going to repeat who it was, but it was another one of the reporters. So
I know. Hey, speaking of which, did you see the nice call out we got on Twitter from somebody?
Nah, yeah, I think so. Actually, they
Basically saying the beat reporters are so lame and stinky. No wonder everybody else is picking up the slack, and he included us in that. He might have included some other things that I didn't think were valid, but
it's very humbling. And it's like I don't say that to like pat my own back or anything like that, but that's pretty cool when people think that highly of us. And trust me, it's like the whole reason we're here is because we don't agree or don't like what's going on in some of those other areas. So, well, I guess we are trying to fill a gap, and most of the people appreciate it. Some people are like, "Oh, you're too sunshine and rainbows." It's like I said, the Ravens, all they do is run the ball. They can't pass. They can't defend the pass. There were holes that I felt that they could be exploited, but I also felt it was going to be a tight game, as all the other ones have been. There aren't very many runaway trains in this series. Baltimore, the Steelers win the toss, by the way, and defer. The first thing that goes right in this game. Baltimore gets the ball first, and for the first half, the Steelers only had the ball about 6 minutes. Yep. Their possessions were terrible. 11 plays, 75 yards. This ends with Lamar Jackson throwing a very bad jump ball intended for Mark Andrews, center fielded by Minkah Fitzpatrick. They got everyone
thanks to
really riled up.
Aforementioned TJ Watt.
Yes, TJ Watt was in his back pocket all day long. Steelers ran the ball 3 times to start this game, but also went 3 and out. They couldn't get it done on 3rd and 1 from the 29. Not that the turnover is more huge that Baltimore didn't get points. Not necessarily something where the Steelers, they start on their 20 since it was down in the end zone.
Yes,
absolutely. It's like a kickoff. So, they don't capitalize on that series, but then again, it's the same as some other series that start. So I'm more annoyed by it because it was a 3 and out. That's the thing that annoys me. Presley Harvin, only a 38-yard punt. He will have a grown-ass man play, and then he'll have a not so much you need to have a coming of the ages type boy to man type, grow up.
I think our girl Tina put in a very nice and maybe it wasn't, I don't know who it was, because it might not have been Tina. It might have been one of the other people out there that put a nice graphic of the stock chart down, stock chart up, stock chart down for Presley Harvin. I think it actually was one of the Yinzer girls or women. I don't know I can't remember what they do.
A couple. They have a podcast too. Yeah,
there's the Yinzers.
There's like Yinzer girls, and
three
or
four women.
Yeah,
I follow some of them. They're nice. I mean, I've watched a couple of their shows. I think they do a good job. But I thought that was a funny tweet because it's accurate. He's had great moments, and he's had Jordan Berry moments. So
let me get to that 38-yard punt. Steelers defense 3 and out on this one, and this was one of TJ's tackles for loss. Steelers get the ball back. Now Ben passes. Najee gets a 5-yard pickup. Looked pretty good. He goes deeper for Chase Claypool, a ball that was a little outstretched. It's a little different. I think Claypool held up on this a little bit. In my opinion, I think he thought it was going short as he's gotten.
I think he was more concerned, and had that ball been completed, he was at great risk of being called for offensive pass interference.
Yeah,
the push off. Yeah. He was concerned with more than the catch. I was not. I'm not saying, like, first of all, he's this big giant dude. Stop worrying about that. Go lay out the ball.
Bump and go there. This is going to come up again later in the game with Minkah Fitzpatrick, but I'll wait until we get there. Hardman booms this one 64 yards. So you just saw Sam Cook punt 155 on the previous, and you're like, why can't our punter do that? 64 yards, and it goes out at like the half-yard line. Unfortunately, the Ravens pick up 9 yards like immediately and get out of the hole, and then they proceed to have a 10 minutes, 27-second drive that ends.
I'm telling you. I'm just telling you. When that ball went out at the 6-inch line, I almost tweeted, be ready for the 99.5-yard drive for a touchdown. Because I just felt it. I just felt it in my veins. It was like a positive thing, and a negative was going to follow. But I didn't do it.
Well, the negative on this drive was the taunting penalty.
Yeah. That's the thing. That was.
It's awful. It was 2nd and 15. The flag comes out. This would have been 3rd and 15 from Baltimore's 31. Not to say that they might not have converted that. Lamar is slippery. And what we saw let's talk a little bit about the way the Steelers defended this game. And I think this is like a puzzle piece, and it's a couple of different things going on. Number one, Akello Witherspoon being in this game, whether he plays Thursday, he's a fresh body. Mike Tomlin was rotating a lot of bodies because he knows there's a Thursday game that was coming up, and it was very smart. The other thing that they were doing a lot of was they would move Highsmith or TJ, and it was almost like they were completely shadowing or spying Lamar Jackson 100%. You either pressure him or you're following him. And what they actually did is that you still had Bush and Schobert on the field, and then you either had maybe Taco Charlton or Derek Tuska. In addition to Watt and Highsmith, they had 5 of the linebackers on the field at the same time. So that was something that I spoke of in the pregame, and they did that again. They also had Adams as a nose tackle, something that's been missing because Alu had been hurt.
Shout out to that guy coming in, on Tuesday, and I mean, there's a couple guys I want to talk about that came in and, very short notice and absolutely were impactful in the game. Montravius Adams was one of them.
Montravius Adams was just...
Sorry. I can't pronounce people's names.
No. At least you knew his name, unlike somebody that I listened to in the post game too. They knew he was 57, and then they were like, and then they made
a weird number too, man. That's a weird number to see in the middle of that line, but
not at Heinz Field. It's not, because there's 57 varieties, my friend. So, anyways,
stop that.
I
still weird.
I stole that from Stan, by the way. Anyways,
it's still weird to see that on the line.
It is. It's just weird as seeing 93 in the middle of the field as well.
Exactly. Yes.
But I mean, the Steelers still, they mitigated some of the potential bleeding there. I mean, Jackson ran 8 times for 55 yards. Freeman 14 for 52. They got what they needed out of this. They were forcing or daring the Ravens to throw. I'd mentioned in the pregame that Mark Andrews has had a problem with drop passes. So at Hollywood Brown, Sammy Watkins, it's just been a thing. I don't know if it's just sloppy passes, because I mean, Lamar will just fling it. He's got like that Michael Vick, just innate Nerf turbo football thing where you make it whistle. And it's just, there's no way of explaining it. And he does them a disservice several times in this game. Andrews does. But the Steelers, Presley Harvin punts one from the 42. He punts it for only 43 yards this time. It's returned 12 yards up to Baltimore's 27. So they're about at the average starting field position here. You actually get, you got more penalties. You got Montravius Adams with a defensive holding,
which absolutely was not.
I could not find that.
One of the stupidest penalties. There were so many stupidest penalties, but that was one of them. And that was. Can I just say it now, please? Can I just say it now?
Yeah, go ahead.
The refs stink. They stink.
I'm going to
fire them all. Fire them all. Fire them all. Hire college guys. Screw them. I hate them. I hate them. I hate them all.
The college guys either, but
they stink too. They all stink.
There was a long discussion on that in the post game too, about how the coaches evaluate these guys and they submit like their rankings and they do stuff like that. But I can tell you from firsthand experience what the coaches think. You're gonna have one guy that's happy, and you're gonna have one guy that's not. Every single game, no matter what. You're not gonna, very rarely are you gonna please both sidelines.
I'm gonna get my rant out of the way. Then I won't rant about the refs anymore in this particular podcast until next podcast when they do something else stupid. But I tweeted this out, and you saw it because I know it got retweeted on SCU's tweet or feed.
Yeah,
all any fan wants is for the refs to not be impactful in the game. You don't want them making the choices that cause the outcome of the game to be decided. That's all you want. But they can't figure that out. They just can't help themselves. Bunch of freaking wannabes.
People are going to talk about the play with the Bears and Cassius Marsh when it comes to the TJ Watt one. These weren't on the same level whatsoever. Cassius Marsh did his best Patrick Swayze or Chuck Norris impression, celebrating a sack, and then started to approach the opposite sideline and everything else. And I don't know. I
think all of this is. I will agree with everyone who has said that should not have been a penalty because it's just ridiculous. This is over officiating the game. I understand you don't want a certain level of aggressiveness, but it's football. These are guys whose testosterone levels is sky high. They are supposed to be aggressive. It's what we want to see out of them. It's ridiculous.
And some
Take
of them,
that damn rule and redefine it.
Let's be honest. Some of these guys are in their early to mid-20s, a great deal of them that don't get extra contracts. There's a little bit more testosterone there than what you would, maybe some maturity issues and things of that nature. But the Steelers defense, 2 sacks now and force a punt. They responded. Chris Wormley got one. Cam Hayward got one. Mike Tomlin in the postgame said something or other to the effect of, you know what happens when a team trades you within your division? Your own division means they really don't want you. So he hopes he gets that type of performance from Wormley all the time. Steelers had a pretty promising drive they follow up with here towards the end of the half, but they only get a field goal out of it, 53-yard field goal, automatic. Maybe the 2 best field goal kickers in this and the sport right now playing in the same game with Chris Boswell and then the Ravens' Justin Tucker, which is what kind of
until later.
Yeah, until later.
And I have nothing against Boz. Boz is awesome. Boz is one of my favorite kickers to ever wear a Steelers uniform. The dude, 99% is money. But you know what? I'm not saying it anymore because as soon as I say it, then he does something like shank an extra point. So
yeah, and you know what? The Ravens do get the ball back with only about 27 seconds, but they had all of their timeouts at this point. And then you also see the Steelers use a timeout thinking they can get the ball back, I believe. And it was a little bit of cat and mouse here until Alejandro Villanueva gets tagged for a holding penalty.
By the way, which was also a baloney call. I'll be the first one to say, look, I'll call them bad on both sides. That was not holding. It was ridiculous.
Oh, he definitely had one somewhere later, though.
Oh,
for
God,
sure.
yes. It's
look,
Alejandro Villanueva can't help but hold. He held when he played for us. He's going to hold when he plays for other people. But the one he got called for was nothing.
Steelers get the ball back here, and they for the start of the third quarter, Najee Harris immediately runs 3 times. They secure a first down, and Ben goes deep. And this is the Ray McCloud overturned. I don't know how you overturn this when you call it a catch on the field. I've seen this called both ways this year, and that's what drives me crazy.
Riveron left. Didn't he leave? I swear to God, I thought he wasn't in the booth anymore. Who the hell? He snuck back into the replay booth in New York City just to overturn that call.
It is now. Sorry if I bumped the mic here. It's now called. I gotta get somewhere in the camera with the air quotes. It's now called New York, so they don't have an actual name, so you can't harass people and send them hate mail. So yeah. But this was bad. I think this one was bad.
There is literally no way that should have been overturned. Did the ball move? Slightly. Did the ball touch the ground? Sure. But was it ever out of his control? No. And the ball is now allowed to touch the ground. It's not. That does not make it incomplete. It's so bad.
And it's still
so bad.
And even if it moves, he's on the ground, and then he has it secured. I've seen this called a touchdown. I've seen this called a touchdown in one of the other games. I can't remember which one I was watching. It wasn't a Steelers game. It was just in the last 2 weeks I saw it. I said, and you hear the announcers, you hear the guys like Tony Romo or something, or Collinsworth, and they're like, well, and then it's completely the referees come out and say something different than the way they're just talking about. Well, I don't know, Al.
I'll give Gene Steratore credit for saying that shouldn't have been overturned. Should not have been overturned.
He's one of the more level-headed people that I hear on TV. The other guy that they have,
maybe they get smarter as they leave the referee. Maybe maybe there's something in the zebra hat or the little stripy shirt that makes you stupider. And once you take it off, you get some semblance of a realistic. A buddy of mine, he is my friend. I like him. Jason, you're one of my friends. He's a Ravens fan. Always been a Ravens fan ever since I've known him. So we have a little thing. Even he tweeted out, I thought it was a catch. And I said, that is because, sir, you are not an idiot.
All right. So this whole series is just bad officiating and totally on the officials. One of the few times I tweeted in the game. So that's called incomplete. That would have been a 32-yard gain. Then Ben goes incomplete to Deontay Johnson, defended by Chuck Clark, who was offside in a neutral zone, which now you can't come back and fix or self-correct that. You're not supposed to. and he does, and they don't throw a hanky, and then he ends up batting the pass because he was in a position that he shouldn't have been in to begin with. He wouldn't have been in that position if he wouldn't have jumped off sides, and then he ends up in that position right in the route because he crosses the boundary and then comes back over. No flag. Absolute BS there. With these two paired up, and now you get the third one. This was an incomplete pass intended for Ray McLeod, who I would have called Antonio McLeod if they would have let the other one stand. The referees don't blow the whistle, or aren't like, tweet, stop the play so nobody gets hurt, nobody tackles someone. Kendrick Green doesn't know if this play is live or not. I'm trying to think who picked up the ball here. This may have been Chuck Clark too, to be completely honest, but I don't remember who has it. So for the sake of argument, let's just say Clark has it. He's playing it like it's alive, like it was a catch, and these guys are standing there with their thumbs up their butts, and then Kendrick Green gets tagged. You know, Stan Savran was saying this. Charlie Batch especially was saying this. Charlie Batch, once he touches the face mask, they got to throw the flag. Well, you got to throw another flag and make this right, because this is totally your fault for not blowing the whistle and letting everyone know that it's a dead play and letting everybody still run around with the football where they shouldn't be. Somebody could get hurt. Now the team gets penalized because you don't blow the whistle. That is on you. So throw another flag. Do whatever. Can you be unsportsmanlike for that? Delay of game and offset
I don't believe
the penalties.
In them. While makeup calls absolutely occur, I don't believe in makeup calls. They should not exist. If you screw up, you screw up. But
that's not a makeup call. Either pick up the flag if it says in the rules, and you're going to get dinged from these evaluations that you end up getting.
Absolutely are right.
Do something to balance the scales.
You're absolutely right in saying they should have blown the whistle, because if they blow the whistle, none of this happens. It's all over.
Yes.
Since they didn't blow the whistle because they're morons and they stink at their jobs and they're terrible. If he grabs the face mask, then yes, you have to throw the flag. You have to throw the flag.
Then you got to get creative and balance the scales there. If it's a must penalty, if you must penalize, you have to know that that's wrong. You have to know that you're in the wrong, and you have to make it right. That's your job as a referee. You're penalizing a team for your mistake. And that's not the way it's supposed to work. You're not supposed to be playing against the third team. This is the one that bothered me.
Well, we do that all the time.
Really bad. Well, we missed one. I think it was already in the second quarter where Deontay Johnson gets tagged.
Yes,
maybe it was in the first quarter. He got hit out of bounds, square with the shoulder, defenseless, right under the chin with no flag. That was absolute crap. And then they throw the taunting penalty like on the next series.
No. It was reversed. The taunting penalty was first, and that hit was second.
Okay.
And that's the whole point. The taunting penalty is a penalty, but that hit's not. You're all morons. And I almost dropped the F-bomb there because that's how annoyed I am. You're all a bunch of morons. That's all I got to say about it. The refs are the worst refs I've ever seen in my life.
Well, the Chuck Clark deal and all that was along that same sideline too. So somebody there may be getting some negative ratings. And they're saying the coaches
I don't hate on anybody that as much, right? I don't wish anybody hurt. But when the ref got hurt, I was like, I have no sympathy for you. Fine, get the hell off the field.
Someone had tweeted that out too as well, Brian, and that was the same feeling I had during this game. How often did the Steelers, their momentum got killed so many times, then they start moving the ball and a referee gets hurt and you go to a TV timeout. And we're all like, what the hell just happened? Nobody knows what's going on in the stadium. And I pack a pocket radio, so I popped in the earbuds and heard what was going on. And you're looking on Twitter to see what's going on and everything else too, while you're sitting there. Ravens score. We'll get moving on this. 10-3. Steelers. They get a ball back. They kind of put together a little bit better than a 3-and-out, but they still get like no real points from this. This was the Presley Harvin 25-yard punt from midfield from the 49. Baltimore's 49, and it goes 25 yards to Baltimore's 24. That was shanked, and that ball, instead of spinning, was flipping. It looked like it hit his shin or something, if you've ever kicked a football in your life. So that was a bad one. Ravens get the ball back. You're just waiting for like the worst of the worst to end up happening in some of these situations, and it doesn't here. Once again, you had a split sack with Wormley and T.J. Watt. You had a lot of good stuff end up happening. You got some pressure, a lot of false starts. You had false starts, and then you had a delay of games, which they actually called the delay of games. But Scott Novak and this crew, By far, there's a play that's going to be coming up here shortly, and I'm just waiting to find it here. But Ben and company score quick. 4 plays, 78 yards, minute 38 drive, 3 plays into the fourth quarter, finds Deontay Johnson. First he finds Claypool, then he finds Deontay Johnson.
This was classic fit.
Yes.
Classic. Great, get the defender up in the air, pump fake, and then just toss it to Deontay. That was just a beautifully executed drive by Ben.
Chris Boswell misses the extra point, aforementioned. And now you're just like, oh, here we go again. This is like the bad juju stuff, right? So now Baltimore gets the ball back, and I'm just thinking, what's going to happen here? And you got 2nd and 7. There's a deep pass for Hollywood Brown. It's a short, bad pass. He goes to come back to it. Minka Fitzpatrick's called for a defensive pass interference that moves the ball 41 yards.
Yeah, I'm aggravated with it because he turned to the ball to make the play. But I will admit, the one arm was around the receiver.
But you're allowed to do that.
Grabbing.
I don't know that he was grabbing.
Looked like it in the replay. Looked like he's grabbing a little bit. Replay.
You also do Target runs?
I do Target runs. Although, to be fair, and unfortunately, this is just true, I haven't been in a Target in over a year and a half, and I don't know when I'll go back in one. So
I'm lazy.
Just no need.
I get free shipping too, so sometimes
exactly. I
do it.
have Amazon Prime. I just say the hell with it. Just give it, send it to me. But my point is, I don't think that was defensive pass interference. Absolutely don't. But I understand why that one was called, at least.
Charlie Batch had a good comment on that. He goes, if you're the Ravens, it's a call you want, and you think it's a good call. And if you're the Steelers, you think it's a bad call. He said it was a coin flip. I get the same sympathy as you do, but that was an underthrown bad ball. And this was the same kind of thing I mentioned earlier where you're put in a bad spot. And Mick is put in a bad spot, and you're not getting...
Well, I actually thought he did basically everything you're supposed to do. He turned to try and make a play at the ball, and you just
almost caught the ball.
If you can get the other hand out when you're turning, then I don't think it gets called.
It might be an interception.
Yeah. I mean, so, it's just, that's the one you live with, because you're like, what are you going to do?
And once again, which sideline was that on? That was on the Ravens sideline.
That same one,
the same one or two, the side judge,
as John Harbaugh walked up and put, $2,000 in that rest pocket.
As they say, but the Steelers, they force it. It's just a 28-yard Justin Tucker field goal, but now because of the extra point that was missed, 13-9, 4-point deficit here. You're thinking, oh man, this sucks. Steelers get the ball back. They drive 10 plays, 50 yards. They try and get something going down to 27, down at the 25. Ben can't connect. He can't connect with James Washington. It's a 43-yard field goal. It's now 13-12. You've got about half of the fourth quarter left to see can the Steelers do something here. And the defense, this was renegade time right here.
That's also where I got blocked on Twitter by somebody. Because he was ranting about how Ben's done, how Ben's terrible, how it's all over. And, that was the drive that drove him nuts. Oh, this is all Ben's fault. Everything's Ben's fault. And so I think one of the next drives where they scored, I went, and he blocked me, called me an a-hole. And I said, people are so sensitive.
Yeah. I mean, the Steelers defense, this is where retiring renegade doesn't work. This was a 3-and-out. This was huge.
And it was awesome. Yeah.
Incomplete to Sammy Watkins. TJ Watt gets a sack. It's 3rd and 15. Every time there's a play here, I'm looking for a hanky on the field. That's how disrupted. That's how disrupted my enjoyment of this was, because I'm getting anxiety looking to see if somebody threw a flag for some reason.
And was this not the series with the strip stack fumble that went out of bounds?
No, not yet.
Okay.
This happened. That happened. That would be the drive where they almost scored and went for 2 at the end.
Got
so this one, this is the one where he went for Mark Andrews, and Okello Witherspoon had
almost picks it.
Oh, he had awareness too. That wasn't even his responsibility.
Yeah.
And I know they were playing a lot of man, which they can against this team because primarily they run, and you got the tight ends. I do believe he was either on his assignment or he was in his zone, but he came off of that. And I'm trying to think who else was coming towards that. that may have had a play on it. It may have been Terrell Edmonds, too, who I thought had a pretty solid game as usual, too. I know a lot of people just kind of ignore him. He had a pretty big play at one point. He could have had a pick on the one. It was like, man, he could.
Did you just say they played a lot of man? Because, I mean, you can't tell on TV, but, I thought they played more zone than anything else.
Well, it depends.
With Lamar.
It depends who they had out there. So if they were throwing like the 5 linebacker look or that stacked almost like 7 to 8 bodies in the box, absolutely they're in a zone there. You got one guy playing deep, which is basically Minka, and they weren't always playing the corners or all corners. Miles Killebrew and Trey Norwood actually came out there sometimes in lieu of Witherspoon, and even Justin Lane got some play time. Arthur Millette is kind of a corner/safety. We know Killebrew is kind of a hybrid linebacker safety with what they've played over the years. They were given a lot of looks because if the Ravens sent out like an extra tight end or they sent out Ricard, the fullback or whatever, they were throwing like Edmonds or Killebrew or Norwood or somebody like that. They were playing like not just corners, but just their safeties. They're versatile DBs, like they're dimebacker types. So in some of those cases, they were manning up. In some of the other cases, they weren't. So it was a blend. But some of that was, and I think Tomlin talked about it in the postgame too, was with some of those zones, when you start playing it, that's what they were kind of exploiting there later in the game where they had the longer drive. But this wasn't the one. This was the one, Witherspoon could almost picked it. Cook punts at 57 yards. Let's make the Steelers do something from their 31 and do something. They do. You had finally one with Anthony Averett, that he basically tackled Deontay Johnson where Patrick Queen came up with the interception, and you almost thought it was going to be over, but those hankies came flying, and thank God it was on the Steelers sideline and not the Ravens sideline, the aforementioned guys who seem to be watching a completely different game. 2-minute warning, Brian, and you got some Benny Snell football. Let's talk about this, too, imposing your will. Najee Harris, 8-yard run. This was the Ben Roethlisberger sack for 0 yards. I was trying to figure out where he got sacked in this game. They were like, well, the Steelers had 7 sacks, the Ravens had 1. I was like, huh? Where?
The broken play that he tried to move up.
Yeah, and he just dove forward. Instead of they ran that play twice. It was the one where he threw the pick last week in Cincinnati towards Claypool, and they connected on it early. And this was almost like, I think, the same play again. And Ben, I remember that. Screw that. And just, dive on the grenade there. And then he got 0 yards. I'm like, how's this guy that's like 6'5" or whatever not like lay out and at least get a yard out of this? But they didn't, they barely breathed on Ben the entire game. And kudos. And fourth guard, let's give Glue a game ball.
There you go. That's the other one I was going to bring up.
Yeah.
That guy, think about this. They didn't run for crap most of the first half, right? And Glue finally gets in and is, I mean, what the hell? The guy comes from out of nowhere and all of a sudden man's up and they're moving the middle of the Ravens line. Whoo! Hey,
Brandon Williams,
I'm sold. I'm on board. Let's see what the dude has. I mean, maybe it's just hey, I'm really fresh because I haven't played. I don't know.
I was wondering that too. He's 6'7". He's a huge dude.
He's a big dude.
Yeah, he's a big dude. I did not like him as a center in the preseason. But, yes, they were finally able to do some stuff. An 8-yard run here. Najee goes for his 13-yard long, another 3-yard run. They bring in Benny Snell for a breather. Benny Snell gets 5 yards. Then you had the pass interference call. Benny Snell comes back with another 8-yard run, and we go to the 2-minute warning. And LeGlue is the fourth guard because Dotson went on IR. Hassenauer went on IR. And then B.J. Finney
was
got
out with the back.
And he's still going to be out. I think he might be done for the season. He's had some back issues all year.
Yeah.
So now you're down to your fourth guard, and you're still you're actually doing better. Let's talk about one other thing that happened earlier in the game, too. Dan Moore goes to the blue tent. He comes back. And most people, we've been speculating this ourselves. We're like, what's going on with Zach Banner? And this is an important detail because this precludes, going forward. Zach Banner comes in, and they moved Chooks to the left.
Yep.
And put Banner in at the right. I saw it immediately the way they were lining up. I'm like, man, that's interesting to me. So that tells you what you need to know about why Dan Moore hasn't been benched to put Zach Banner in at the left tackle.
Yeah, they're not confident with him being. They don't want him to be at left,
and they don't want him to be at right because they're not benching Chooks either.
Yep,
there you go.
So that's why. And as much as Dan Moore has taken some heat, once you got into that, he was personally responsible for at least one of those nice runs because he was downfield leading. I'm pretty sure it was Najee. It was nice. It was very nice to see.
2-minute warning, and Clark is offside. And I look over at my cousin, and I said, "That's John Harbaugh."
That was on purpose.
That on purpose. And he talked about that in the post game, and he sends me a text. He goes, "You're right." And I said, "I know I was right because John Harbaugh will cheat to win." And,
absolutely. Well, let's put it this way: John Harbaugh will bend the rules or find the loopholes in the rule book to win.
So let's explain.
Is it cheating? Is it really cheating?
Yeah,
in a way, it's coaching decision to send your guy off sides to save the timeout.
It's much like that Super Bowl, with the punter and the safety and just going to the corner and burning some time and
it is. It doesn't
find
a way. It's not illegal. Doesn't seem fair, but it's not illegal.
It's not the most sporting thing in the world either, as far as gamesmanship and everything else is concerned. But let's explain why or how what this does. The Steelers are going to be second and 2 from the Baltimore 13. That means they could still get a first down. And if they can get a first down and not score, they could run it down and just kick a field goal and win this game. Yep. Now what Chuck Clark ends up doing, and he makes sure he makes contact with somebody so they blow the play dead and Ben doesn't get the free play. That's what signaled to me for sure that he did it on purpose. You now move the ball up 5 yards to the 8. There's only 3 downs that the Steelers can, 3 plays.
Yep.
They can run, and this ensures that Baltimore can get the ball back no matter what. Instead of just laying on the ground and letting the Steelers score, they still felt at this juncture that they might be able to, with the 1-point lead so far, right? 13-12 at this point.
Hold them to a field goal.
Well, maybe they hold them to a field goal. They got their guy could kick. He's got the record for the longest field goal in NFL history, and they would have been kicking in the closed end, which would have benefited him. Justin Tucker, that is, which is what we'll get to with this final play and going for 2. But Deontay Johnson, once again, wide open, just like a boss. And somebody was saying this was like a coming-of-age game for him. I'm like, where have you been? But you want to do the stock?
He's been awesome all season.
The stock, the rocket packs on him. Yeah. So, and then Pat Freiermuth. And you got the Muth chants going. Gets the 2-point conversion. The place is rocking. They're up 7.
We just do that chant for any tight end because Gentry got a couple passes and I heard it for him too.
But there was some Muth because people were confused and don't know that that's not Pat Freiermuth. He wears 88.
That's anybody who's a tight end. In other words, big, tall, white guys who catch the ball.
Used to be Heath.
They just, it's like, doesn't matter.
Jesse James always got Heath.
Now it's Moose.
But there was a little Gentry. There was Gentry. They were trying, but it just doesn't roll off the tongue the same way. But there was. Yeah, I don't know. Zach. They're not going to say Zach. They probably don't know his first name. Steelers 20-13. Baltimore. They have their timeouts. 1:40. They have 2 of their they have 1 timeout. Steelers got them to burn 2 of them, which was smart. Now, as much as you say about play calling and everything else, this was done to perfection. They imposed their will. They ran the football. They opened up the pass game. And
I could have done without the Claypool jet sweep.
Yeah,
I could have done without it.
But you just never know. You never know.
I know. I could have done without that.
It didn't hurt them. That's 2-yard gain, but it didn't hurt them.
That's my dig. I don't have any other objections to the play calling. That's my dig.
The disappointing thing here that ends up happening. You got 1st and 10. Baltimore gets the ball at their 40 because the kickoff goes out of bounds and they're penalty.
What a strange bounce that he got on that ball. I mean, this is where you just feel like
the odds are stacked against you.
Yeah. You just like, who put the mojo on us? The whammy, the evil eye. Somebody out there is putting the evil eye on us or something because. I get what he's trying to do. He wants the ball to come down in bounds, and short of the goal line so that it forces time off the clock, right? We want the run back in this instance. and he gets
got
that, and he did exactly what he was supposed to do. But then that odd bounce, if that bounces, any other way, if it just dies there, oh my God, then it's beautiful, right? But
I'm going to apologize to any flat earthers that might be watching the show. I do think the Heinz Field has got a bit of a slope to that one side of the field because that's where the ball comes 2 plays later. So Bateman gets a false start. He gets tagged with the false start. They back him up 5 yards. They're still practically out in the middle of the field. You're thankful that Baltimore's not getting the ball back and only needs about 20 yards for a Justin Tucker field goal. Lamar Jackson gets strip sacked by TJ Watt, and the ball ends up out of bounds. Alejandro Villanueva got tagged with holding on this too. They got declined. 3rd and 14, and Jackson finds Hollywood Brown in the middle of the field.
Man.
And then he finds Duvernay.
Yeah, if you want to have a point of complaint with the defense, holy Moses, how many 3rd and longs did they give up that game?
They gave up, I think, about 50%. I didn't go into team statistics. Baltimore, by the way, had the ball a total of 36 minutes and 30 seconds to the Steelers' 23-30. And they converted on 3rd down 8 of 16 times. The Steelers were 5 of 12, so they were pretty close to about 50% too. So far from perfect with Baltimore. But the rest of their numbers were damn near right on the money. The Ravens ran 69 plays. So that's the only thing that kind of concerns me with the defense, but the offense only ran 57. So offense should be fairly fresh going into Minnesota. You get down to this, the very end of this, Brian, and they got 40. They burnt their last timeout. They've got 45 seconds, and they only got to go 24 yards. And you're like, man, this really isn't feeling so great. And he finds Sammy Watkins, and then Sammy Watkins for the touchdown with 16 seconds left. And then the Steelers, this is the whole thing I was talking about. Cam was coming off the field, trying to figure out who they were going to have. They're going for 2. And, genius if it works, fool if you're not. I think I forgot Harbaugh's quote afterwards. He said something about not having enough cornerbacks or defensive backs to go into overtime. This was him disrespecting the Steelers' defense and being way too over-aggressive with his analytics. And there are some that say, if it wasn't for TJ Watt was definitely the reason this play doesn't work. He gets in Lamar Jackson's face. It's a bad ball. I don't know if Andrews still gets there or not. We saw Andrews kind of pull forward earlier, and 4 guys couldn't tackle him. So there's a benefit of the doubt there. I think he had the angle on Devin Bush. I'm not sure he had the angle on Terrell Edmonds. It would have been, but against Edmonds, I think he's a bigger dude. It's tough for me to say if they would have converted that for sure or not, if he would have caught it. But the other problem is he could have given him a clean ball and he would have dropped it too. It had been that kind of game for him. It was not his best. He could have dropped it.
Let's not say he would have. He could have.
Yeah. Did I say would have? I thought I said could have, but
that's all right. You're tired. Throw it along.
I am exhausted. If you hadn't seen it in my eyes, folks, it's like whew. And these colder weather games tend to take a little bit out of you as a fan too. My throat's very sore from screaming my head off for most of the 4th quarter, and it's just this doesn't work. And the Steelers and the Ravens, I don't know why you wouldn't go to overtime with one of the best kickers in the league. I don't care how many defensive backs you have. The Steelers' offense has been booty cheeks most of the – I love that word. I started using it, by the way. Booty cheeks. Yes. Booty cheeks for most of the year. And you've been squeaking out these victories. You've been to overtime a few times with other games, and you've won all of your close games, and you're the number 1 seed, and you wrap up the division if you beat the Steelers. I think it's a momentary lapse of judgment within the confines of this rivalry, wanting to stick it to everybody in Heinz Field and everything else, and just, thinking that your playmaker's going to make a bigger play, and he didn't than the Steelers playmakers with the 0 blitz that was there, and they just let TJ do what he wanted, and he was going to do what he wanted regardless. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Gotta love that. This is good territory for the Steelers because if they could stack wins, if they could steal one in Minnesota, they will improve to 7-5-1. We had the Cincinnati Bengals get the brakes beat off of them by the Chargers as well.
Yeah.
The Browns were on a bye, which now the Ravens have to lick their wounds. They came out of this worse on the injury aspect.
Is that game in Cleveland or is that next game
game is in
Baltimore?
I believe that game is in Cleveland. They just played in Baltimore. So they got to go to Cleveland after going to Pittsburgh. And there's kind of a similar setup at the end of the season with the Steelers, too. We'll be talking about that when that arrives because you've got Cleveland at home, short week, and then go to Baltimore, which could be for all the marbles. But you take a look at this, and I think Cleveland's really set up nice. They played real tight of a game. They've now seen what the Steelers did to defend Lamar Jackson, and they did okay with it, and they forced 4 interceptions from the guy just the week before. They haven't been playing too hot. The Ravens, that is. They've got a lot of injuries. What I'm trying to say is the dominoes are starting to fall here. And this puts the Steelers in a position if they could steal a win and if they could get to 7 victories here. I mean, this might put the Bengals in the driver's seat for the AFC North too. But
that's exactly where I was headed with this. Look, the Ravens have the Browns, right? Then they have the Packers.
Yes.
And I don't know. I'm checking to see who they have after that because I don't. But then they have the Bengals, who beat the living crap.
They did the same thing that they did to us. Yeah.
So you're looking at a Ravens team that could lose 4 straight games because going into Cleveland, they could lose that game. Absolutely. Having the Packers come to Baltimore, I sort of would expect them to lose that game the way the Packers have been playing. Then you've got the Bengals in Cincinnati. Now, that can go either way. And then they've got us. They could lose out the season.
They very well could. And let's not lose sight of that the Packers
they got the Rams in there, too. So they have the Rams coming in, who, again, they don't have a gimme game the rest of the year, right? No. So
none of the AFC North does.
Yeah, you can see the Ravens dropping from the 1 seed to not in the playoffs by the end of this season. And Ravens fans are going to be annoyed, but let's be realistic and just look at that schedule and the way you guys have eked out wins this year. And when, at some point, that turnover differential, all the other nonsense that has been normally would indicate a losing record and hasn't yet, all that stuff's going to come back to bite you if you don't get it correct. So that's very possible. What that really means is that the Bengals will have probably the best opportunity to try and take the division, depending on all their games. They don't have all easy games either. I think they end with the Chiefs.
I got it up here. Okay. They got the 49ers at home next. They go to Denver to face the Broncos, a middle-of-the-road Broncos team that's been playing decent defense. I mean, they forced the Chiefs, and the Chiefs didn't even throw a passing touchdown last night. So that's a possibility there. Then they got like 3 of their 5 at home. So they host the Ravens and the Chiefs and then go on the road for the final game in Cleveland.
And they also play the Packers in Green Bay.
No, not Cincinnati.
Oh, who's that? The Browns? Yeah, the Browns. Sorry.
Yeah, the Browns. Let's bring them up. We already got everybody else. So Cincinnati has the 49ers, Broncos, Ravens, Chiefs, and Browns. The Ravens have the Browns, Packers, Bengals, Rams, and the Steelers. The Steelers have the Vikings, Titans, Chiefs. Let's be honest here. The Titans are on the downswing, too. They got a lot of injuries. No Julio, no A.J. Brown. Obviously, Derrick Henry. They might get him back for the playoffs. If they make the playoffs, they're losing.
They don't think he won't be back for the Steelers game, right?
I don't think so. I don't think there's any way he can be. And then, so the Steelers have the Vikings, Titans. They got to go play at Kansas City. And Kansas City's been It's a tough one, but they've been you can't rule it out necessarily.
They've gotten most of their mojo back. They're not perfect. They can be beaten, absolutely, but they've been better in the second half.
Their defense, it's got to be. That's the tale of the Steelers' defense.
Well, to be fair, their defense is the reason they've won the last 3 or 4 games. So
they've turned the ball. They've gotten some turnovers. They've gotten some points from their defense too. That's helped. And then you got the divisional games, which we've always said if the Steelers can split the AFC North, they got a fighting chance to not only win it but maybe make the postseason. They got the Browns and the Ravens. If you sweep either the Browns or the Ravens or both, you can win the whole division here.
Absolutely, they can.
And then the Browns just had their bye week, so they get the Ravens again. They got the Raiders, Packers, then the Steelers and Bengals. So this is none of this is a cakewalk for anyone.
I don't want to say I can see this because if they can pull off 4-1, right, losing Kansas City, right, and win the other 4 games, win the 2 divisional games, beat the Ravens, beat the Browns. Not saying that's a gimme at all in either case. But if they do that, beat the Titans and beat the Vikings, The questionable call in my mind there is the Titans game because they're a decent team. So that's could go either way. They should beat the Vikings. They should be able to handle both the Ravens and the Browns. They've proved they can do it. All right. If they can win those 4 games, that's 10 wins. If the Bengals end up at 10 wins, then the tie helps you.
Yeah, well, that's the one that's really sticking in your craw because you could be 7-5 right now. The 5-7 Minnesota Vikings, on the other hand, just to note, just the short little glimpse into that, they're 7th in passing yards per game, 15th in run, but that was primarily Dalvin Cook. Anthony Madison is capable. We'll see what's going on. Even Christian Darrisaw, their rookie, I think has been banged up. That's the only guy I think the Steelers may have looked at other than Najee Harris with their first-round pick. Defensively, though, they're 23rd in giving up pass and 29th against the run, so it's another bad run defense, Brian, where I believe the Steelers might be able, now that they see a little bit of blueprint here, they might be able to pull this off. I always say they're set up for failure because you're going on the road. Thursday night football games do not benefit road teams, and this isn't a common or familiar opponent that they're playing either. So sometimes
it's not a gimme, right? Yeah. I'm just saying, I think you can see a path to the division. It is not a easy path, and there are still glaring concerns. Like I said, all of these, giving up all these long third ands, that's a concern. But you also can see positives. If TJ stays healthy the rest of this season, that's just a game changer for that defense. And I don't mean to indicate that TJ Watt is, you can't take one cog out, but I'm sorry. You're talking about a guy who should have been a DPOY for the last 2 seasons, should be it this year. That is not just a cog, right? You don't replace TJ Watt. You just don't. So, yes, it is going to be impactful on that defense when you take 123 quarterback pressures out of that side, when you take 16 sacks away from that side of the ball. It's just no question. But if TJ Watt stays healthy the rest of the season and can play the way he's been playing, we all know every now and then TJ will disappear free. Every now and then he gets handed. Happens. But if he continues the tear he's on right now, oh my God. Absolutely, they could win any of these games. They could win them all, and if they do that, yeah, that's I don't want to put the as they say, put the whammy on us again here, but be reminiscent of the year with Jerome. It's reminiscent of that. If they pull that kind of thing off, win all their last games, woo. Watch out.
Here, let's say this real quick before we sign off as well. Kirk Cousins has only been sacked 18 times this year. He's only thrown 3 picks. He has 25 touchdowns. To his credit, he's completing 68.4% of his passes for 3,353 yards. He's had one hell of a season, but the rest of his team around him has been crumbling. He has been doing it. Their record is in spite of Kirk Cousins having a very good season. Justin Jefferson, the second-year player, he's the primary target.
I'm going to be fair. Scares me.
Yes, 112 targets, 78 receptions, 1,209 yards already, 7 touchdowns. But Thielen has 64 of the receptions there and 10 touchdowns. Aside from that, there's nobody else on the roster that's a primary receiving threat. You got Tyler Conklin, the tight end. The Steelers have done very well, extremely well for the most part. I think the Raiders game was the only kind of aberration there, and there were some injuries that led into that, but they've done extremely well with the plethora of versatile defensive backs that they have. Primarily, it's been Terrell Edmonds shutting down tight ends this year. I don't think Conklin, 47 for 469, he has 3 touchdowns. I don't know who they lean on here as their primary threat. Anthony Madison, on the other hand, still, he has 405 yards and 2 touchdowns with only 3 starts this year. He has appeared in 12 games, which is more than Dalvin Cook, who will be out. He had 773 of those yards and 4 touchdowns. So You're looking from that standpoint. The guys on the other side of the football, though, Steelers line got to handle Danielle Hunter, Everson Griffin, Sheldon Richardson, who they're familiar with, who was formerly with the Browns, bouncing back and forth between teams here. Yeah. Eric Kendricks is a solid linebacker. Harrison Smith can be exploited as a safety. He's hot and cold. They have Anthony Barr, who's another really solid linebacker as well. So we'll see. Brashad Breeland is one of their corners who's been getting a lot of time. They have guys like Mackenzie Alexander, Cam Dantzler, Patrick Peterson. They have like a whole cycle of guys that have been in and out of the lineup. They can't find their footing with some of the defensive backs. So if the Steelers offense can find a little bit of groove in the passing game, they can run against this team for sure. They should be able to. That's kind of where I look at with that. You got to see if TJ's going to get home. I know that Kirk's been smart with the ball all season, but he also has the offensive line that's in disarray right now too. So that's kind of just the short gist of it. We'll look at see what other dings and dents have happened. A short week. They're not going to get a whole lot of practice. I'm not sure how much they install. Maybe they do the same. Maybe they have a lot of the same sort of game planning that they might against that they had against the Ravens. I don't know. So we'll see. We'll see if Joe Hayden ever comes back. I don't see it happening this week. I think they'll have yet another game off. So maybe that foot, we'll see what happens. And another thing that was brought up too was a foot injury with Chase Claypool. We tend to forget he's playing dinged as well. And when he's on the field, he's a game changer, and he's playing through that. So that's something to take into consideration when we have some things to say about Chase versus not, where he's performing or whatever like that. I think that's some of it. I think some of it might be up here too. Somebody was trying to say he got yanked. I'm like, if he did, it was very short, very brief. He was out there a lot. He was physical and willing blocker yesterday as well. So these are some of the elements. Maybe the Steelers are finding themselves. They may have found some things that clicked.
Let's hope. Let's hope.
And I think maybe that front, this ain't going to work on every team, but the next few teams, and he can't really do this against the Chiefs, but I think you could do this against the Vikings and the Titans. The extra linebacker or getting like 7 guys in the box, 8 guys in the box.
I don't think the Chiefs will eat you up.
Chiefs would eat you up because they got enough everything else. They're not primarily a good running football team to begin with. You got to watch Mahomes, obviously. But I think against the Vikings, and this was a lot of it, people were like, oh, why didn't they get after Jackson? You got to kind of, the defensive line almost stands up and doesn't move. They're almost creating a fort there. They're creating a wall. Yeah. It's because if you go and pursue, the guy's gone because he's slippery. And that happened a few times. And then you saw times where, well, geez, why aren't they getting him? They still got to him like 7 times. But you just can't over pursue. That's a Mahomes type guy.
He moves in the pocket like nobody else.
No, absolutely.
And just gets through cracks in the line like you just don't know how he manages to do it. He's a wizard with that. So the fact that they got him down 7 times is really more impressive than I can even say.
Kirk Cousins is not that guy. Ryan Tannehill's not that guy. So
nope, absolutely.
All right.
Hey, well, I got something.
Go for it.
All right. For you 1%ers, I haven't been around. I promised you this was coming. So I've fallen back to an old standby, basically, is what it is. For those of you who've been following us for a while, we gave away a slew of mini helmets in a program called Helmet Worthy, right? Where we basically said, send us a video and tell us why you're helmet worthy. Or tweet at us with a video and tell us why you're helmet worthy. One of those things. So you can either tweet at me or Joe or Steel City Underground. Tell us why you deserve this full-size Jeff Reed multi-inscription helmet. Tell us why. We will leave this until after the Titans game. Okay? So sometimes you got basically 2 weeks to come up with why you're helmet worthy. And somebody will get that helmet. Now I'm going to save the AB helmet because I need to do something for the March of Dimes next year, and I'm going to use that helmet for the March of Dimes. So
hopefully that's people what I'm want that fool.
I know.
Don't even have to get into that, but oh boy.
And maybe it won't be AB. Maybe I'll do something even better. Like because what
could possibly be better than AB at this point?
Anything. I could give away. I could give you who was the tight end that we thought was going to be awesome and that stunk?
Which one?
Ladarius Green.
Okay,
I'll give
so
you a
you found
Ladarius
something.
Green helmet that's more valuable than that AV helmet is now, at least to a Steelers fan.
You just reminded me. Good Morning Football does this, and I think they'll end up doing it probably Tuesday, Wednesday. They do the not new jersey, right? And people will take photos. They find people in the wild wearing jerseys that are just way out there. Like, I think somebody had an Adrian Peterson jersey. I forgot who he was with recently, and he only played like a few weeks and something like that, for example. Or they find some of these, and you're like, wow, I forgot about that player. Well, at the casino yesterday before the game, you might, and I apologize if this happens to be one of our listeners or viewers, but you know who you are. You were wearing number 14, Limas Swede.
Oh, my God.
You were getting tweeted at Good Morning Football for that, sir, because you have no business wearing that jersey. It was like, come on, guys, does anybody have a jersey I can wear? I can't even imagine that somebody had that somewhere in the back of a closet.
Yikes.
That is, I mean, every now and then you see like Mike Wallace. You could at least sympathize if it was a popular player.
You can understand why somebody would have bought. Yeah, exactly. You can understand why somebody bought a Mike Wallace jersey. But man, you prematurely pulled the trigger on the Limas Swede thing.
And held on to it for all of these years.
Man.
I mean, okay, you're pulling out Kirkland or somebody, Levon Kirkland. It's like, well, you got some classic names with the Steelers. We're not talking about like guys like Lambert or Mean Joe. People are still wearing those jerseys. Antonio Brown, people are still wearing them. I understand they probably sold a boatload of them. Even James Conner, you're still wearing Conner. Okay, that doesn't fit. Limas Swede is probably the worst one I've seen. I did see Joey Harrington at the Steelers-Lions game. That was interesting, but at least Harrington was a guy who got on the field and was a starter for a few seasons, and he was like a top pick, you know what I mean? He was meant to be the franchise, and I know that didn't turn out, but good, man, Limas Swede, wow, that's a bad one, so that's going out there. So don't forget the helmet-worthy thing. We're up against it for sure. Brian, thanks for joining me once again, and we got a short week, and we'll come back. I don't know if we'll do it Thursday night, Friday morning, something of that nature. We'll get on the horn. We'll
do it Thursday night if we're hyped.
Yes.
Friday morning if we're sad.
Yes. Well, I was hyped yesterday, but there was no way I was.
You had to drive midnight, man. I'm in bed. I'm old.
Man, I was almost in bed and I was driving, so not a good thing.
That's
but
not good. That's not good.
Hey, it was an impromptu trip. I wasn't actually planning on going, so that was part of the deal there. But our 1%ers or 2%ers or whoever's still left there, maybe 3%ers, we got some more people hanging around a little later. Don't forget the helmet-worthy thing Brian just mentioned. I'm sure we'll be tweeting that out and stuff like that. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. My name's Joe Kuzma. Next time you see me, I might be in pajamas by Foco. They got the family pajamas. They got a few different sets of Steelers ones, so I'll plug them. You're actually going to see me in it if it's the late night or the early morning. I'm going to pull those out. Hey, I tweeted it out. Me and the kid got some pajamas. Hers says, "Well,
that's okay. It's cute when your cute daughter. That's all good. It's nice.
But you're going to see me from the waist up, and I'll still be wearing a hat, even though it's pajamas, because this is, you don't want to see the bald, what's under the lid here. So,
okay, I'm not gonna. I won't.
I'm always going to wear a hat. I don't care how professional or unprofessional it is. LL Cool J does it.
I'm bringing out my ugly Steelers sweater next time.
Oh, you know what? I would do that, but it's too warm to wear it right now.
Yes, it is, and it's huge. Remember, I got that
that's right.
Giant Fat Man, so it's humongous on me.
Yeah. Well, mine might not fit. We might have to trade. I'm turning into the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man myself. So, folks, that'll do it for us. My name's Joe. His name's Brian. And until next time, no other Ghostbusters references or this show will be 5 minutes longer. We encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.